My 17-year-old daughter didn't get an invitation to my sister's wedding. Too young. Is it because I'm adopted? She asked me. I silently crossed us off the guest list. A week later, they found out what I'd done. The envelope smelled like vanilla and printing ink, like it had been packed in a bakery and run through a glossy promise machine. I opened it with a lemon knife because it was the first one that came to hand. Inside, gold on cream paper, letters, lots of love and forever, and one line that knocked the stool out from under all that beauty. 18 plus with no exceptions. At the bottom was the signature of Vanessa, my middle sister. She took the invitation, read it, lingered on the no exceptions, and asked as calmly as one asks the price of a lawnmower. Is it because I'm an adoptee? I could have said something conciliatory, something along the lines of don't make it up. That's the rules. All kids don't go. But we both knew how to read subplots better than recipes. That's because they chose convenience over conscience. I replied and placed the card on the table the way one would place a hot skillet carefully, so as not to get burned again. The phone on the tabletop came to life and chugged fish. The Sisters Plus Mom family chat room glowed with plans. Wine shade matching, rehearsal dinner, jokes about son-in-law will be ours, finally a normal person. Not a single question about Ava. They knew she was 17. And I knew they knew. While the kettle was acting like a steam engine, I was bombarded with simple, nail-biting flashes of the past. The first was Thanksgiving at my parents' house. Linda, my mother, hugs us in the hallway the way one hugs distant acquaintances at the health clinic. With a smile but at a distance. How grown up you've become. Nora's daughter, she says loudly so the neighbors can hear. Our granddaughter, I answer like a tentative prayer. Linda nods the way one nods at a lecture. The second flashback is Christmas at Vanessa's. The mantelpiece, socks with names, Emma, Liam, Ben. For Ava, an unsigned baggie pinned with a pin to a basket of cookies. Everything is symbolic this year, no frills. Vanessa says and hands her son a teapot-sized quadcopter. Beth, the youngest, captures the cuteness on her phone and whispers in my ear. Ava's drawings are so bold. Not everyone is into it. Bold is a word adults use to describe anything they don't want to understand but can't call bad. The third was a school exhibition. Ava hangs a watercolor. The shore, thin grasses, light on the water that makes you want to come back closer. Vanessa arranges a photo shoot for her nephews at the Best Math Results booth. She doesn't get to the watercolors. We're already leaving traffic jams. Let's take a picture of Ava and me as a souvenir, I suggest. The light is terrible, Beth says, although the light was exactly the kind of light that makes photographers climb on tables. Ava's 16th birthday. I ordered a strawberry cake, decorated the kitchen with navy-colored balloons, wrote a week's worth of chat. Sunday at our place, everyone is welcome. Responses, 3 emoji, 2 we'll see. 1 we have a match. On Sunday, 2 classmates came over, neighbor David with a ukulele, and our cat, who didn't understand why there was no food. No Vanessa, no Beth, no parents. Vanessa sent a voicemail. Oh honey, so exhausted, didn't make it at all. Tell Ava we're with you in spirit. You understand. I made one more attempt at politeness, on the day my parents were updating the refrigerator with pictures. The Bloodlines diplomas hung in tight rows. Ava's drawings were gone. I'd brought a new work, the city after the rain, warm windows, wet asphalt, smelling of iron. Let's hang it, I said and was already holding the magnet. Don't overload it. Linda stopped me. The refrigerator is not a gallery. I opened my laptop, went to the website with an RSVP and selected, not participating. No comment or explanation. The phone vibrated. Vanessa. Sis, really? You make it about her, but it's not about her. Beth. You're obsessive. Always dramatizing everything. Linda. We're family. Weddings are no place for scenes. Robert added briefly. Don't make us look. I set the phone screen down and washed apples. When it came back to life, I washed towels. When it came back to life, I went out on the porch. At home, Ava and I agreed on one thing. No one here is overruling anyone's dignity. It's not a point of discussion, it's a default. The next morning, I brewed coffee and reached into the very memory box where you throw in little things not worth forgetting. A picture of Ava in a pink sweater holding a plasticine pumpkin at my mom's door. A note from Beth. We're going bigotry-free this year. Screenshot of 18 plus with no exceptions. I'm not a grief collector, I just like closet order. By nightfall, Ava and I were sitting on the floor, laying out her artwork for her portfolio. The paper rustled a little, snowing. She showed a sketch of the courtyard behind our school, where a lantern makes a circle of light, a saucer. Keep this one, I said. He's breathing. So do we, she replied and smiled, a genuine smile. I caught myself in the simple, stubborn fact that I chose her every time. Not because you have to be a good mother, not because it's the right thing to do, but because there is no other meaningful center to my day that you don't betray for someone else's convenience. When you realize this, it gets quieter. What happened next changed everything. You don't want to miss how it unfolded. At Thanksgiving, my parents' table always looked like a promotional picture. Turkey glistening, gravy lounging in a boat, tablecloth without a single crumb. I set Ava's plate down next to me and heard Linda politely say, "Let the grown-ups go first." At that moment I suddenly realized the simple arithmetic. In their house you become an adult by blood passport, not by age. Robert asked how old Ava was, even though he himself had given her a bicycle a couple years ago. I answered out loud and added to myself, "Old enough to." Christmas at Vanessa's smelled like cinnamon and expensive candle wax. Their tree was better dressed than half the guests. Gifts were handed out like bonuses at a corporate party, with a ceremonial listing of merit. When it was Ava's turn, Vanessa feigned slight confusion, found a package in the basket, and handed it over with the smile she usually wore for her annual report photo. In the bag was a set of markers that smelled like vinegar. I said thank you as if I'd been given opera tickets because the baby could. The phone chat had a knack for speaking in a falsely friendly tone. "You do realize all the kids aren't going out tonight?" Vanessa texted. I calmly sent her a list of activities that all the kids had been going to for years, including late-night fireworks at my uncle's house and late-night gatherings after games. Beth took offense to the facts and suggested, not making a big deal out of it. It's amazing how quickly a fly turns into an elephant when it's sitting on your back and not on their wall. Parents' refrigerator stories have long since become a family sport. I once asked what the rules were for getting diplomas in there. Linda replied that they put up, "What's important to everyone." I wondered who everyone was. Apparently it's a closed group of people that doesn't include children adopted by people other than them. I didn't argue, not because I agree, but because arguing with a closed door only makes you hoarse. I've decided that Christmas this year will go by without our traditional masquerade ball called family dinner. Without the prearranged photos, without the duty phrases, without that feeling of being like a waiter in your own home. Just no chatting, no calling, no stuttering about the menu. Vanessa, as always, couldn't stand the silence and shot first. "So what are we having this time? Rosemary potatoes or your famous meatloaf?" I left the message unread. Not because I'm playing silent, but because sometimes the lack of a response is louder than any no. A couple hours later, Beth sent a gif of a cat banging its paw on the door. Apparently a hint. "Open up, we're here." I even smiled. Funny how they turn my reluctance to participate in their theater into some kind of whimsical show. By late afternoon, my parents had gotten involved. Linda texted, "You realize we're waiting." And Robert just put a plate and fork emoji in the chat room. They seem to have decided that humor can replace respect. Instead of all that coddling, Ava and I made tea with orange peels and pulled out a 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle. Half the evening was spent arguing over whether the black spot in one of the pictures was a cat or a rock. We laughed until we cried, but even in that laughter I caught the sting how easily they left us out of the equation. The next day it was snowing like it was trying to cover all the tracks. I walked home from work and saw notifications on my phone like a snowfall of other people's expectations. Vanessa texting that I was ruining tradition. Beth texting that I was obsessed. Linda nailed it with a phrase. Family is about compromise. I'm willing to agree, if by compromise we mean something other than one always gives and the other always takes. And then the doorbell rang. On the doorstep, Linda and Robert. She was holding a box of cookies, he was holding my scarf from last year. As if it were a pass back to the family. "We're here to make up," Linda said, and her voice was like warm water in a glass. Pleasant but not thirsty. "Why are you making this so complicated? They're just rules." "What rules?" I asked. "Well," she lowered her voice, She's not blood, not one of us. You know that. And then everything went quiet. Even the cat stopped rustling the bag in the corner. I opened the door wider, but not to let her in. It's time for you to go, I said. Nora, Robert started, but I held up my hand. It's time. They left, leaving the cookies on the table. I looked at that box and thought it was strange. The same hands can both hold and push away. The only difference is who they're working for. That evening I told Ava about Linda's words. She listened, shrugged, and said, "They can't rely on me." Again, not anger, not resentment, but a pure, calm understanding of the boundary. After they left, I sat in the kitchen for a long time with a mug that had already gone cold. The cookies stood nearby, like physical evidence of a conversation that could not be unseen. The smell of vanilla was too sweet, too sticky, like someone else's apology you don't believe in. I remembered how, as a child, my mother had taught me to be polite to guests, even if they displeased you. At the time, I thought it was about keeping a straight face. Now I realize it was training in ignoring your own boundaries. I went into the living room where Ava was laying out her drawings. She was sitting on the floor with her legs tucked up, penciling a shadow on a portrait of our cat. The tap of the pencil on the paper was as steady as breathing. "What do you think you're going to do with the cookies?" she asked without lifting her head. "Throw them away," I answered. "Could I give them to the neighbors? Let someone have some sweetness." I grinned. Sometimes she had a way of saying things that made the truth stick out of a joke. Later we went out into the yard. The snow kept falling, and our footprints were disappearing fast. Ava said that snow was the only thing that could erase mistakes without regret. I replied that sometimes snow also covers up things worth keeping, but it doesn't ask what's important. On the way back we met a neighbor, Mrs. Carver, who invited us to her Christmas party. I thanked her and said we'd think about it. In fact, I already knew we would stay home. My house is the only place where Ava doesn't have to earn his place at the table. Later I checked my phone. 23 unread messages in the family chat room. One from Vanessa. "Nora, you're turning the holiday into a punishment for everyone." Another from Beth. "We're all suffering because of your resentment." These phrases are always pitched as if it's about my whim rather than a years-long marathon of belittling. I closed the chat and deleted the notification sound. Let them right into the void. In the evening, Ava and I had a small dinner. Pasta and sauce and apple pie. No candles, toasts, or obligatory photos. She put on a jazz record and we ate to the soft sound of the saxophone. I felt like it was the first real celebration I'd had in a long time. No falseness, no perfect family role-playing costumes. After dinner, we moved into the living room. Ava pulled out an old box of Christmas toys we'd collected over the years. Some were downright weird: a plastic penguin in a hat, a ceramic apple with a crack, a wooden star with peeling paint. "None of this is Linda's standard," I said. "Then it's ours," Ava replied, fixing the star on the shelf. I thought back to last Christmas at my parents' house. Vanessa had ordered designer ornaments then, all in the same style, in the same color, just like in the store window. When Ava handed them her homemade snowflake, Vanessa thanked her and put it in storage. The storage turned out to be the top shelf of the pantry where the forgotten boxes were gathering dust. At the time, I was still trying to convince myself that they just didn't think. Now I knew they had thought, it was just that the choice had been made in favor of a picture rather than a person. Now, sitting on the couch with a cup of cocoa, watching Ava hang the garland on the bookshelf, I felt strangely calm. Sometimes coziness isn't about having everything shiny. It's about not having anyone checking to see if your garland matches someone else's idea of right. We turned on the lights and a warm glow filled the room. Outside, someone was setting off fireworks and their reflection hit the glass. It was someone else's holidays, and that only made me feel better. Before I went to bed, I went back to the kitchen to get water. The cookies were still on the table. I opened the box, took one and tasted it. It tasted just like the words they'd brought with them. Sweet only in appearance, with an unpleasant aftertaste. I tossed it all in the trash and rinsed the crumbs down the sink. "Done," I said out loud. "Not about the cookies. This is the climax. Everything you've been waiting for is right here. Stay to see the hero put everyone in their place." On the third day after Christmas, the phone lit up again, like a Christmas tree in a firehouse. But this time it wasn't an avalanche of individual messages, but one long email from Beth. She had clearly tried. Lined paragraphs emphasized objectivity, and lots of exclamation points where it was about me. In Beth's version, I'd isolated myself from my family, used Ava as a shield, and was now brainwashing her. In places it sounded like she was quoting a textbook on manipulation, and in places it sounded like a commentary from the local newspaper discussing a neighbor who had stopped mowing his lawn. The letter was particularly touching in how she sympathized with Ava, because she was deprived of normal communication with her real relatives. I even made myself a cup of coffee so I could read it to the end. I was curious to see at what point she would decide that I had completely disappeared from society. Instead of answering, I scrolled through the family chat room. There was already a lot of discussion about my strange behavior, and some distant relatives joined in with advice like, "You need to give her time," or "Maybe it's an age thing. It would be funny if it wasn't so gross." I opened my laptop and created a new document. I decided that I would write it all out once just as it was, and send it only to people who really wanted to know. No requests, no dramatic headlines, just the facts. I saved screenshots of messages, dates, even a photo of that very box of cookies. I wrote calmly, almost without emotion, like a work report where the numbers say it all. When the letter was ready, I sent it to those who once asked questions, not pass judgment. Let the rest of them live in their own version of events. I have no access to it. After sending it, I opened the contact list and began to remove the names. Slowly, one by one. The phone seemed to get lighter with each deleted number. My hand lingered on some of the names, but only to make sure I was making the right decision. Ava was sitting at her desk, drawing. When I finished, she looked up. "Well?" she asked. "Everything," I answered. "So can I have tea?" "Yes." We sat with mugs of tea, listening to soft music and not saying a word. And there was more support in that silence than in any family gathering. In the evening, we picked out photos together for her portfolio. She laughed when I took too long to choose between two almost identical shots. One had slightly brighter light, the other had slightly softer shadows. "Do you choose people as carefully as you choose shots?" she asked. "I do now," I replied. "Sometimes I think I missed them. But not for them. For the idea I once had of them. Those are different things." And today we ate pizza, laughed about the movie, and made plans for the spring. Those plans didn't include mandatory trips to places that make you feel like you're superfluous. And I suddenly realized I chose her every time. What would you do if you were me? I reread Beth's letter again, this time slowly, taking a sip of coffee after each paragraph. Sometimes I thought she was writing about some other woman who happened to be called by my name. In her version, I'm the general waging war against the tribalism, and Ava is the hapless soldier being held in a trench with no say in the matter. In one line in particular, she took particular pains to say, "You close the doors to the world in front of her." I even hummed out loud, "This world. The one with invitations with your name in small print and reception in parentheses next to it? Thanks, but I do keep the door there closed." Sitting at my desk with my laptop, I remembered little things. How last Easter Linda gave identical chocolate baskets to all the grandchildren except Ava, for whom they forgot to buy. How in family photos she was always placed at the side, a little in the shade. These pictures fell into the text themselves like puzzles into a ready place. While I was writing, music was playing in the next room. Ava had turned on an old jazz album, and a soft saxophone was pulling from it. This music overlapped with the pounding of the keys, and I felt like I was putting together my own soundtrack to the release. Sometimes I stopped and looked out the window. The snow was laying down in thick layers, like pages you don't want to reread anymore. I knew that this document would be the final page, so I made sure that there was nothing superfluous in it. Only things that I wouldn't have to justify later. When I sent the email, there was silence in the chat room. So thick that I could almost hear someone on the other side frantically typing and erasing words. No accusations, no attempts to reason, just emptiness. And in that emptiness it was much easier to breathe. After cleaning the contacts, the phone felt like new. No reminders of birthdays that had passed us by anyway. No endless photos of other people's meals. Instead, messages from people I really wanted to hear from. A neighbor asking about a pie recipe, a friend suggesting a movie, a colleague sending a photo of a funny poster outside the subway. In the evening, Ava and I spread out sketchbooks of her work on the floor. Some of the drawings were old, with childish proportions and colors too bright, but she wouldn't put them away. It's a reminder that I'm growing up, she said. I thought that unlike some adults she understood. Growth isn't a shame, it's a fact. We set up dinner right on the floor, among the sketchbooks and pencils. Pizza in a box, glasses of tea, a couple candles. And no sense of anyone judging how properly we were celebrating the evening. Before I went to bed, I caught myself thinking that home, for the first time in a long time, feels like a place where you don't have to be ready to be attacked. It's a place where you can just be. And that's enough. The next day I woke up before Ava and decided to make breakfast, baking pancakes while the air in the kitchen slowly warmed. The smell of cinnamon filled the room, and I caught myself thinking that it had been a long time since I'd cooked in the morning without feeling rushed. When Ava came in, hair still disheveled, she picked up a plate and said, "Are we going to have mornings like this more often now?" "Yes," I replied, and that yes wasn't about the pancakes. After breakfast we went outside. The snow crunched beneath our feet, and the sun was breaking through the gray clouds. Ava took pictures of the trees and I took pictures of her. Each shot seemed to prove to me that we'd done the right thing. Here, away from other people's scripts, she seemed truly herself. Back home we had a movie night. We laughed at old comedies, argued about endings, and ate leftover pizza straight from the box. At some point I realized that this laughter was not defensive, not forced, but real. The kind that you don't have to pull out of yourself. As I lay in bed, I replayed the day in my head and suddenly realized that all that was left of the extended family fit into a few deleted numbers in my phone and one box of cookies in the trash. And all that really matters is sleeping behind the wall now, with a scrapbook under her pillow. I chose her every time, and I will choose her again no matter how many times I have to.